Discover the incredible truth behind a Millionaire's heartwarming encounter with a little girl. Mark Sullivan stepped out of his sleek black SUV and inhaled sharply. The air was thick with nostalgia and the scent of popcorn from the annual charity event held in the park. It was a scene of laughter, vibrant faces, and the stark contrast of emotions threaded through the softened smiles of the townsfolk he had once roamed these streets with. Now a self-made millionaire, Mark felt both humbled and overwhelmed by memories of simpler times, growing up amid the financial struggles that always lurked just below the surface as he weaved through the crowd. A warm smile magically lit up his face when he spotted Emma, a bright and spirited 9-year-old girl, darting around like a firefly. Her laughter drifted through the air, but there was something in her eyes, something that told him her laughter rang hollow against the current worries threading through her home. With her father deployed overseas, Mark could see the weight of the world on her mother's shoulders. Somehow, Emma's infectious energy brushed away the sense of disillusionment that had begun to settle on Mark's heart. When she approached him, her eyes sparkling with excitement, he knelt down to her level. "What's your name, little one?" "Emma. Are you really a millionaire?" Her voice rang with eagerness. "I am," he said, chuckling a little. "Sounds cooler than it is. But yes, cool. What were you gonna do to help the kids?" She smiled brightly, unclouded by the shadows of worry that often loom in the lives of so many. Before Mark could respond, the mayor stepped on stage, his authoritative voice slicing through the upbeat atmosphere. "Folks, I have sad news. Due to drastic budget cuts, we'll be losing several key community programs that support our children." Panic rippled through the crowd. Voices rose in protest, old rivalries flaring up. Mark felt a knot twist in his stomach as he recognized friends and neighbors he hadn't seen in years now divided over impending misfortune. It was a stark awakening to witness desperation and despair tugging at familiar faces. Families he once shared dreams with but were now worlds apart. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mark's own thoughtful intentions, like funding a new sports program for the kids, began to feel futile under the weight of stark reality. It dawned on him that money alone wouldn't bridge this growing gap. And when he learned Emma's father, a decorated veteran, faced discrimination for his service instead of gratitude, Mark's heart sank further. Guilt washed over him, and he found himself at a crossroads, a millionaire in a community that needed more than just financial help. Wonder faded from Emma's eyes. How could he be a beacon of hope when the world seemed so unfair? As the night wore on and tensions surged, Mark felt compelled to speak. But could he truly redefine what success meant in a town where dreams hung on the brink of disappointment? The room buzzed with murmurs, and he knew something had to change. Then, a single thought broke through the chaos of his mind. If he dared to dream of a better tomorrow for Emma and her community, could he be the one to light the path? Mark took a deep breath, his heart pounding against his chest. The air was charged, a mix of hope and uncertainty swirling among the townsfolk. He could almost taste their desperation, a silent plea wrapped in waiting eyes. Emma stood nearby, her innocence wrapped in a cloak of unspoken burdens. He felt her gaze upon him, anticipating the wisdom of a millionaire, yet all he felt was inadequacy. "Ladies and gentlemen," he called out, his voice echoing across the park. The crowd quieted, curiosity replacing their frustration. "I know many of you are upset. I feel it too." He searched the crowd, locking eyes with familiar faces, their stories etched in the lines of their expressions. "I grew up here, and I know the struggles you all face. But I believe we can find a solution together." Some murmurs of doubt rippled through the gathering, but Mark pressed on, pushing through the knot in his stomach. "It's easy to point fingers at those in charge. But we are the community. Together we can reclaim the support our children deserve." He glanced at Emma, her wide eyes shimmering with hope. A voice broke through the mayor, still visibly shaken, stood to counter. And how do you plan on doing that? With what money? There isn't enough. Let us not limit ourselves to money. Mark replied, his conviction rising. I have resources, yes, but more importantly, I have ideas. We need to come together to create programs run by us, the families, the parents, the community. What if we hosted events every month? What if every family contributed a little bit of time, and we pooled our efforts? Slowly, nods of agreement sparked throughout the crowd. Conversations began to bubble up, a new energy igniting among the gathered faces. We can hold fundraisers and bring in local businesses. We can partner with schools, bring art and music back into our children's lives. His voice soared higher, painting a picture of possibility. Emma began to smile, her enthusiasm rekindling. It was contagious. The crowd started to breathe easier, laughter replacing the murmurs of doubt. What do you think? Mark asked, raising his voice across the park, weaving between familiar smiles and cautious glares. Could we band together and save these programs? We don't need to wait on others. We can do this. The crowd erupted into a buzz of animated conversations, nerves still tinged with skepticism but blossoming into ideas. Mark could see it was working. Hope was taking root. Just then, Emma tugged at his sleeve, her voice barely above a whisper. Can we really make it happen? Like tomorrow? There was a seriousness in her tone that tugged at his heart. Mark knelt again to meet her gaze. We can start today, Emma. It's about believing we can change things and taking the first step. In that moment, he realized that this wasn't just about community programs or funds. It was about rekindling the spirit of togetherness, transforming a group of separate lives into a unified force for good. As the discussion expanded, ideas exchanged amongst friends. He couldn't help but feel a swell of purpose bubbling inside him. Maybe, just maybe, he could help redefine success not as wealth, but as the connections they forged, as the lives they touched. But just as excitement began to swell in his heart, a sudden shadow crossed over the park, and Marcus' smile faltered. A voice cut through the enthusiasm like a blade, echoing warnings of more cuts to come. Would their newfound spirits stand strong against the challenges ahead? Mark felt the weight of that shadow fall heavy on his shoulders. The voice belonged to Mr. Harris, a bitter superintendent known for his stern demeanor and unwavering commitment to cutting costs, no matter the collateral damage. He strode forward, a grimace creasing his brow. Gathering everyone here doesn't change reality. Mark, Mr. Harris warned, his tone icy. The school board has decided to cut even more funds. Your little grassroots movement won't hold water when it comes time to make hard decisions. Gasps trickled through the crowd. Mark's heart raced, panic threatening to sweep him away. This was not the moment for discouragement. He had ignited a spark, and he needed to fan the flames, not let them flicker out. Mr. Harris, Mark replied, steeling himself, I believe there's always a way forward. Trust me, I've been in places where hope was slipping away, just like it is here. But when people stand together, he glanced around, taking in the anxious faces. Their strength multiplies. Mr. Harris scoffed, arms folded tightly across his chest. Dreams don't pay bills, young man. This town relies on real resources. Keep your hopes, but don't expect them to uncut our budget. A wave of disheartened mumbles rolled through the crowd. Emma's bright smile slipped, transformed instead into worry. Mark felt a pang in his chest. He had promised her change, and now it seemed so precarious. Listen, he said, raising his voice to rise above the murmurs. I didn't say it would be easy, but I see potential in each and every one of you. We can start something that makes the decision-makers take notice. If we show them that we care enough to fight, then maybe, just maybe. He trailed off, searching the crowd's faces for someone willing to believe. I'll help, a voice called out. It was Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly librarian, her silver hair catching the sunlight. I'll do story time if it means giving the kids something magical. Mark's heart leaped. Others chimed in, offering their time and skills, decking the park with banners for fundraising events, teaching art classes, hosting bake sales. The tide was turning, and he could feel it. See? Mark gestured wildly, feeling the adrenaline rush. If each of us contributes just a little, we can make something big happen. We could turn our frustration into action. Emma looked up at him, her eyes wide with determination. Can we also have music? I want to teach everyone the songs my mom used to sing with me. Yes, Mark exclaimed, infusing his reply with excitement. Music, art, stories, there's a place for all of it. Let us start planning our first event right here, right now. As ideas exploded into life around him, sharing of dreams and passions sparked a momentum Mark had never anticipated. Even Mr. Harris seemed to sway, caught off guard by the gathering energy. But his brow remained tight, shadowed by skepticism. While the crowd buzzed with growing enthusiasm, Mark's heart sank, fear lingering on the periphery of his excitement. They had a temporary win, but would it be enough? The real fight was just beginning. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the park, whispering warnings that their unity was going to be tested in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Mark wondered silently if the heart of the community would be strong enough to face the challenges ahead. Just then, a child's voice cut through the noise, asking a question that froze him in place. What if they don't listen to us? The sincerity in her words sent a shiver down his spine. What if all this effort fell on deaf ears? He had more questions than answers, and fear clutched at his heart. Would their efforts even make a difference? Or were they destined to face a harsh reality that would smother their hope like the encroaching darkness around them? Mark stood frozen, the little girl's question vibrating in the air. Around him, excitement ebbed away like a tide pulling back, leaving only the stones of doubt. He caught Emma's eyes, which shone with a mixture of hope and trepidation. It squeezed tighter around his heart. Sometimes, he began, his voice soft yet firm. The people in power don't see what we see. They don't hear our voices unless we make them listen. The crowd shifted, adjusting to the weight of his words. Mark did not know how to erase the fear that had settled there, yet his own belief pushed him forward. But can you feel the energy? The way we're all here, together? A few heads nodded, uncertainty lingering. We might feel small alone, he continued, but together we can create a wave they can't ignore. Part of him worried it wasn't enough. The stakes loomed high, more daunting than he had anticipated. What we need, Mark said, stifling his doubt, is to gather stories. Real stories. We need to show them the impact cuts have on our lives, our community. Can everyone share their concerns? Their hopes? Let us start tonight, shouted a voice from the back. It was a father of two, a baker who was always on the go with flour dusting his shirt. I'll bake cookies for the kids' event if you all come together at my shop. A spark ignited within him. Yes, each one of you has something unique to offer. Let us build a campaign around our stories. Each event we host, each meeting we have, we can collect these moments. Real change happens when we connect with each other, and with those who hold the power to change our school, Mark said, his conviction rising like a warm breeze. Can we create a scrapbook? Emma chimed in. With pictures and notes, so our stories are all in one place. A wave of excitement surged through the group again, ideas flew like confetti. It was contagious. Each suggestion stirred the pot of creativity, weaving a fabric of resilience. The planning began, laughter mixing with aspirations as the community transformed into an organized army of voices, ready for battle. Mark looked at Mrs. Jenkins, who had taken to organizing the volunteers, her smiles reflecting the hope they all felt. For the first time, Mark acknowledged the glimmer of potential in those moments together. What had started as an uphill battle seemed to morph into a collective strategy, a united force that perhaps even Mr. Harris couldn't ignore. As the sun sank lower, casting a fiery hue across the park, a familiar voice broke through his thoughts. It was Mr. Harris. You think this will change minds? He called out, still advancing toward them. You'll need more than a scrapbook. Mark felt a swell of emotion. We will keep fighting. Even if you can't see it, we're building something real. We're going to share who we are, he responded, the heat of determination rising within him. But Mr. Harris held the cards. He was still in control. Would anyone listen? Would they even care enough to notice the warmth rising in communities? A sense of dread slivered through Mark. The youngest faces around him giggled and shouted as excitement bubbled over. But Mark's heart pounded heavily, tinged with uncertainty. Could they make enough noise? Suddenly, he wasn't sure if they really could. Just then, Emma tugged on his sleeve, worry flickering beneath her brave face. What if we do all this and they still don't listen? Mark's mind raced with the overwhelming possibility. What if this endeavor faltered? Would hope slip through their fingers just as fast as it had blossomed? The night loomed like a dark curtain, and Mark realized they had a long way to go. Would they have the courage to speak against fading futures? Would they still find a way to shine when they faced the giants? What lay ahead remained uncertain, but Mark knew one thing. They had to be ready for the fight that was just beginning. Mark woke up the next morning with an ache in his chest. The weight of what lay ahead felt heavier than ever. He had joined the movement because he believed in its power, but doubt lingered like a stubborn shadow. The urgency of their mission pulled at every part of him, and he worried whether they could truly affect change. The sunlight streamed through his bedroom window, warm and inviting. But as he lay there, the glow felt stark against his worries. He quickly dressed, shaking off the lingering thoughts of failure. The community was counting on him, and he wouldn't let them down. Outside, the cheer of the neighborhood was in full swing. Families were out walking dogs, kids playing tag, and the scent of fresh bread wafted through the air from the baker down the street. Mark took a deep breath, feeling a flicker of hope ignite deep within him. Maybe excitement could override the doubt that had crawled into his heart as he approached the bakery. He was greeted by the charming sight of a cheerful Emma, her hands covered in cookie dough, laughter spilling from her lips. "Mark, you have to try these," she called out, holding up an oddly shaped cookie, the icing still gleaming under the morning light. Despite the chaos of confectionery ingredients around her, she reminded him of why he was fighting. He forced a smile, joining her behind the counter. "Okay, but only if you save some for the event tonight." Their fingers danced over flour, sugar, and chocolate chips as they formed the cookies. The intimacy of the scene brought a lightness to the heavy atmosphere of doubt lingering in Mark's mind. Each laugh and each gooey handful turned into a bond they were forging. As they worked, an idea sparked in Mark's mind. "Emma, what if we made a card to go with the cookies for tonight? Something that mixes your creative spirit with the stories we're gathering?" "Yes," she exclaimed, her eyes glowing brighter than before. "We can make it about our dreams for the future. Something that shows the adults how much this matters to us." His heart soared at her enthusiasm and creativity. Together, they designed a colorful card with drawings and messages, inviting the community to share their truths. It felt good to focus on something tangible, something they could share. It was a promise of unity. After they finished, a flood of volunteers poured into the bakery, gathering around tables scattered with baking supplies. Laughter echoed and warm chatter blended into a symphony of hope. Mark stood back for a moment, and he watched as adults and children united over simple cookies and big ideas. But then Mr. Harris arrived again. "Back at it, I see," he said, arms crossed, skepticism etching his voice. "Isn't this going a bit overboard for one meeting?" Mark's heart sank, but he lifted his chin, unwilling to yield to negativity. "No," he replied steadily. "This is just the beginning. This community has stories to tell, and we will make sure they are heard." Mr. Harris smirked, leaning back against the counter like a specter of doubt. "Good luck with that. You'll need more than homemade cookies and paper crafts if you want to change minds." Mark's pulse quickened, doubt flashing through him like lightning. Was he right? Would this gathering of hearts and stories really be enough? The laughter around him, though, reminded him of the power of unity. They would fight together, armed with cookies, cards, and their stories. Mark straightened, bolstered by the support of the community. Later that evening, under twinkling lights strung in lush trees at the park, their gathering began to take shape. Laughter faded, replaced by anticipation. Sharing their truths felt monumental, but what if it fell flat? As Mark stood before the crowd, gripping the microphone tightly, he struggled against the tempest of doubt. Would tonight be the night they would turn the tide toward a brighter future? with heart thumping in his chest. He spoke into the mic as the first brave voices began to rise. But just then, he glanced over his shoulder. To his shock, a group of unfamiliar faces had gathered at the edge of the park. They were watching, curious. What did they want? What would this mean for their fight ahead? Mark's breath caught in his throat, uncertainty threatening to drown him once more. But amidst the sea of supportive faces, he felt the fire of hope burning brighter. Mark took a step back from the microphone, uncertainty swirling in his chest. The crowd buzzed with murmurs, some folks turning to each other with raised eyebrows, while others whispered words of encouragement. But the new faces? They were still. They stood a bit too far away, their expressions unreadable. Swallowing hard, he tried to reconnect with the moment, with the warmth flowing from the people he knew, who believed in him. He focused on Emma's smile in the front row, shining like a beacon, reminding him why they were there. The cookies they had baked, the cards filled with dreams they felt like an anchor in this storm of doubt. "Let us not just share our stories tonight," he said, his voice steadier as confidence crept back in. "Let us spark something bigger. This community has a voice, and right now it's time to be heard." A few cheers erupted from the crowd, fanning the flickering flame of his courage. But the strangers lingered, their presence still causing unease in the pit of his stomach. Mark's eyes darted back to them, but before he could study them further, another familiar face stepped forward. "Mark," Emma called out, her voice ringing with enthusiasm. "How about we read some of the cards? Let everyone feel the energy we've created." "Absolutely," he replied, trying to shake off the lingering worries. He appreciated Emma's infectious spirit. "Let us start sharing our dreams. Who wants to go first?" Hands shot up, eager voices chiming in. Story after story emerged. Laughter mingled with emotion as each person opened up. One woman spoke of her hopes for her kids. A teenager shared her vision of a cleaner community. Each tale was a thread in the tapestry. They were weaving together a perfect blend of love, hope, and resilience. Then, the crowd shifted as a man from the group of onlookers made his way forward. He was tall, wearing a leather jacket, and as he approached, the warmth of the gathering dipped for a moment. "Excuse me," he said, his voice clear. "I heard you all talking about dreams and community. I wanted to know, why does it matter?" A collective gasp echoed through the crowd. Mark felt his heart drop. This wasn't just curiosity. It was a challenge. Would this be a moment to doubt again? But before he could retreat into his thoughts, a small voice piped up. A little girl stood next to him, her hair swinging with animation. "Because everyone deserves to be happy," she declared, her innocent wisdom radiating through the air. The crowd murmured their agreement. Mark swallowed hard, the weight of her words resting upon him like a warm hug. He could feel emotions bubbling beneath the surface, a mix of pride and a growing belief that this was not just a gathering, it was a movement. The stranger's expression softened, and he took a step back, perhaps caught off guard by the girl's conviction. Mark seized the moment. "That's right. We're here to show that together, we can create a better world. Every story matters, and together, we can build a future we can all be proud of." A wave of applause ignited, a chorus of agreement cascading through the park. The energy was electric, sparking embers of hope that chased the shadows away. But just as Mark thought they had turned a corner, he noticed the stranger glancing at the group of unfamiliar faces again. Were they allies, or did they hold a different agenda? Mark's pulse quickened, tension creeping back in. "Mark," Emma whispered, her brow furrowed with concern. "What if they don't want to join us?" His stomach nodded. Would this moment of triumph soon be overshadowed by conflict? The man stepped even closer, and suddenly, the atmosphere felt charged with possibility. "What if we could turn this into something larger?" he asked, surprising everyone. Mark held his breath. Was this the moment they had been waiting for? Or had they just opened the door to unexpected turmoil? As the crowd murmured, the air crackled with tension. Questions loomed, the kind that could change everything. What did he really mean by that? And how would it affect the fragile unity they had built? Mark steeled. Himself, caught between optimism and apprehension, ready to face whatever came next. Mark took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling as he navigated through the wave of emotions washing over him. The man's words echoed in his mind, an unexpected openness in a moment filled with uncertainty. People in the crowd shifted, leaning closer, every ear pricked to catch the next words. "What do you mean?" Mark asked, his voice barely a whisper. He wanted clarity, yet at the same time he feared what it might bring. The man smirked, his sharp features softening slightly. "What if we took your little community here and expanded it? Imagine combining our resources to reach more people. Imagine bigger events, more stories. A platform." The murmurs in the crowd grew, a mix of intrigue and hesitation dancing around them. Mark's heart raced. Was this the kind of help they needed? Or was it a dangerous proposition that could threaten the very foundation they had just begun to build? Emma nudged him gently, her eyes wide with wonder. "Mark, what do you think? This could really create change." But Mark's gut twisted. "What's in it for you?" He shot back, needing to understand the motivation behind this offer. "Hey, I'm not trying to be shady," the man replied, lifting his hands defensively. "Believe it or not, I used to be like you, just chasing dreams until life threw me a curveball. I'm just trying to do something good, to help." The sincerity in his voice struck a chord. Mark glanced at the crowd, searching for familiar faces. There were looks of curiosity, excitement, and caution, a spectrum of emotions that mirrored his own. Suddenly, the little girl beside him piped up again, her eyes shining. "But it's not just about you helping us. It's about everyone together. That's how we make it better." A ripple of laughter flitted through the crowd, easing the tension just a bit. It reminded Mark of why they were all their community, connection, something bigger than just individual efforts. He felt her words wrap around his heart, urging him to find the courage to speak. "You're right," he said, catching the attention of the man before him. "We all have a part to play, and our dreams don't just matter for us as individuals, they matter for everyone." Mark stepped closer to the stranger. "But if we're going to do this together, we need to keep it personal. That's what makes these stories powerful. Can you promise to respect that?" For a moment, the stranger's gaze hardened but softened again quickly. "I can work with that," he replied. "No watering down. Just raw, real stories." The crowd began to cheer, a mood shift in the air as hope blossomed like wildflowers. Mark felt a whirlwind of possibilities spiraling through his mind. "Okay then," Mark declared, letting the excitement swell within him. "Let's turn this into a conversation. For everyone to be part of this, let's start small and dream big. It's a team effort from here on out." Cheers erupted again, a chorus singing a sweet melody of unity. As the crowd gathered closer, fists raised in solidarity, Mark felt the air humming with a newfound energy. But the tension still lingered. His instincts told him there was so much more beneath the surface. What intentions lay behind those unfamiliar faces? What pasts had they lived? Just as the applause began to settle, Mark noticed the man's expression change. There was something more to him, something hidden, a story of his own that seemed like it was on the brink of unveiling. As the crowd buzzed with excitement, Mark locked eyes with the man. "What's your name?" he asked. The response could change everything, and the uncertainty gripped Mark like a fleeting shadow. Would this be a leap of faith, or was it the beginning of something more complicated altogether? The man hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "My name's Alex," he finally said, the name sounding almost too ordinary for their extraordinary moment. But there was a weight behind it, a story that felt bigger than just a name. Mark studied Alex closely, looking for clues. Lost in thought, the little girl's voice broke through again. "Mr. Alex, what do you help with? Are you going to help us?" Her enthusiasm was infectious, and heads turned toward the stranger when they heard her bright chatter. Alex knelt down to her level, a grin spreading across his face. "Well, I can help with anything that needs a bit of spark. Your stories, your community, they deserve to be heard far and wide. How about we get to know each other a little better first?" The crowd murmured their agreement, eager to embrace this new possibility but still a dozen questions hung heavy in the air. Mark felt a quickening in his heart. This was it. They were on the verge of something bigger, but doubt shadowed his thoughts. "Let us not lose our focus," he said, addressing both Alex and the crowd. "We need to ensure we stay true to our mission. It's about sharing our experiences, lifting each other up." He stepped forward, feeling the pulse of the gathering like a living entity. "I want to hear from everyone. Ideas? Suggestions? Who wants to jump in?" A hand shot up from the back. It was Lisa, a single mother who shared her struggles during past events. "What about the local shelters? If we work together, we can create awareness and gather resources to help more families." She stood firm, passion radiating through her words. Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd. Mark smiled, heart swelling at the unity in the room. It was moments like these that made every labor worth it. Alex nodded thoughtfully, captivated by the idea. "We can organize fundraising events, share your stories, and use social media to draw attention. But we can't rush any of this. We need honesty, connection, and most importantly, trust." Those words hit home. Mark felt his pulse quicken and uncertainty churn like storm clouds in his gut. Could he really trust Alex? Could their little community withstand the weight of something bigger? "Okay, let us plan our first talk," he said decisively. "A session where everyone can share their ideas and we can brainstorm as a group. We'll start this journey together." Excitement rippled again, but before anyone could speak, a flicker of movement caught Marcus' eye. Across the way, just out of the light, stood a figure disturbed, troubled. It scared him how the figure blended into the shadows, eyes narrowed, observing them intently. "Do you see that?" He whispered to Emma, who was standing beside him. "Yes," she replied, her voice trailing off. "Should we?" Before she could finish, the figure took a step forward, disappearing into the gathering dusk. Their presence felt charged with an unspoken energy, sending shivers down Marcus' spine. Something or someone was lurking just beyond their warmth, and the thought unsettled him deeply. "Let us not forget who we are," he said, recovering himself. "We're here to bring light and hope, but we must also stay vigilant. There are stories everywhere, even in the darkest corners." Marcus' eyes darted back to that space in the shadows, his heart racing. What was hidden there? Who was watching them? The door was cracked open now, and with it came questions wrapped in a blanket of unease. They were stepping into an unknown world, a journey fueled by hope and uncertainty. It dawned on him that change often walks hand in hand with danger. He took a deep breath, grounding himself. Now, more than ever, they had to stand together, encourage one another, and perhaps uncover the truth behind those lurking shadows. As the crowd began to disperse, a thought nagged at Mark. What were they really getting into? Would the light they hoped to spread illuminate the darkness lurking just beyond their reach? A hush fell over the group as they turned to leave, but Mark could still feel eyes on him. The hairs on his arms stood on end, and he felt an urgency tugging at his heart. Something was off. He scanned the area one more time, his gaze lingering where the figure had stood. It was gone now, swallowed up by the evening shadows. "Are we really doing this?" Emma's voice broke through his thoughts. She was looking at him, a mix of excitement and fear flickering in her eyes. "What do you mean?" Mark asked, trying to sound calm. "This everything feels risky. Are we ready for what we're about to unleash?" Her concern rang true, and Mark's own doubts bubbled to the surface. Could they, a simple community group, really take on something so grand? "We have to try," he said, more to convince himself than her. "If we don't, who will?" Emma nodded, but the uncertainty lined her brow. They were taking a leap, and it was frightening. As they started walking home, the streets seemed darker than usual. Street lamps buzzed quietly, casting long shadows that danced across the pavement. He thought about Lisa's suggestion, about how it could thrive, but Alex's presence loomed large in his mind like an unfinished puzzle. "Did you notice anything strange about him?" Mark asked, glancing at her. "Strange? Yeah, like why is he really here? He just shows up, talks about sparks and stories, and everyone eats it up. It's almost too good to be true." Emma shrugged. Maybe he genuinely wants to help. Sometimes people surprise us. That's true. But what if he is hiding something? Mark pondered aloud, his thoughts swirling. If we're going to work together, we need to be careful. Trust is built, not just given. When a sound broke through the stillness. A whisper. Soft. Like wind through leaves, but unmistakable in the growing silence. Did you hear that? Emma said. Her voice barely above a whisper. Mark's heart raced again. Sounded like it came from over there. He pointed to the alleyway just off the road they were walking. What if it's the shadow person? She asked. Fear creeping into her voice. He hesitated. His mind screamed to run, but a strange curiosity rooted him to the spot, pulling him closer. Let us just check it out. What? Are you crazy? Just a quick look, he insisted, stepping toward the alley. Emma reluctantly followed, her eyes wide with apprehension as they moved deeper into the alley's shadows. The whisper grew louder. It was a woman's voice, low and rhythmic, like a haunting lullaby. Help. U.S. Mark's skin prickled as he leaned closer to the sound. Hello? He called out, his voice echoing off damp walls. The whisper stopped. Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating. Mark's heart pounded, his instincts screaming to turn back. But just as he was about to retreat, a small figure emerged from the shadows. It was the little girl from earlier, standing there in her worn-out shoes, her eyes wide and frightened. Mr. Mark, you have to come. It's not safe. Time seemed to stand still. The air tightened as he realized the gravity of her words. Just when he thought they were beginning to find their way, the real journey was just starting. Wait, where are you going? He shouted, but she was already slipping back into the dark, disappearing like a flame snuffed out by the wind. Mark turned to Emma, their confusion mirroring each other's. Did that just happen? What do we do now? She asked, her voice shaky. Just then, a distant sound echoed through the alley sirens. They were coming closer. Mark took a breath, every instinct in him telling him to follow the girl. We need to find her, he said urgently. It's time to uncover what's really going on here. The chase was on, but where would it lead them? Would they find hope or a deeper mystery lurking in the shadows? Mark felt a surge of adrenaline pulse through him as he and Emma raced after the little girl. Their footsteps echoed through the narrow alley, the walls pressing in like a close conversation. Sirens wailed in the distance, but all he could think about was the urgency of the girl's warning. Please hold on, he called out, struggling to keep pace with the girl's nimble frame darting through the darkness ahead. Where are you going? The little girl glanced back, her expression a flicker of fear and determination. You have to help. They're coming for us. With that, she rounded a corner, disappearing into a dimly lit side street. They skidded to a halt, and Emma, breathless, turned to Mark with wide eyes. What does she mean? Who's coming? I don't know, Mark said, his voice steadier than he felt. But we can't just leave her. She needs our help. He sprinted after the girl, and Emma followed closely. The street opened up into an empty space, a parking lot tinged with soft amber glow from nearby streetlights. It felt like entering a forgotten world. Over here, the girl called, her small hands waving them forward. She stood beside a rusty old van, battered but still standing strong. What do you mean it's not safe? Mark asked, catching his breath. He glanced around the lot, searching for any sign of danger. They're after someone, a man who has been warning people, helping families like mine. Her voice trembled, cutting through the stillness. We have to go before they find us. Where do we go? Emma asked, her voice trembling. The girl hesitated, looking back down the alley as if sensing danger creeping closer. To the fire station. There's safety people who can protect us. Let us get moving, Mark said, pulling Emma with him toward the van. But just as they reached the door, a low rumble interrupted the night. The same shadows Mark felt earlier emerged, unfurling from the darkness into the light, their faces hard, cold. There they are. A voice boomed. It was Mr. Harris, flanked by several grim-looking squad members. Stop right there. Every instinct told Mark to flee, but instead, he took a deep breath, gripping Emma's small hand. Stay close to me. We're not running. Harris stepped forward, dismissing their worry with a wave of his hand. Don't you understand? This is bigger than you think. You don't know what you're playing with. The girl bravely stepped forward, her small voice defiant. You're the ones hurting families. We won't let you take them away. A scoff cut through Harris's stern facade. You're naive. You have no idea what we're up against. This was it. Everything they had built was at stake. Mark's heart raced. This was the moment to either back down or stand firm in their new mission. You're wrong, Mr. Harris. It doesn't matter how big the obstacles are. We're ready to fight for our community. The ground felt charged, as if the very earth understood the weight of their words. Amy's resolve seemed to spark something in the crowd that was beginning to gather, a wave of solidarity lifting their spirits. You're just doomed to fail. Harris snapped, but Mark could see cracks in his armor, uncertainty creeping into his voice. What if we prove you wrong? Mark replied, every ounce of determination pushing him forward. With those words, a cascade of voices began to rise from the gathered crowd, faces he hadn't seen in a while. Neighbors ready to stand against the tide of fear. You won't take our families. An older man shouted. We have stories to tell. Together we are louder. Emma's grip tightened on Mark's hand, the spark of hope igniting around them. Mark glanced at the little girl, whose brave stance reflected his own. Let us share our stories, Mr. Harris. You can't silence everyone. Harris hesitated, casting glances at the faces before him, community members that he long ignored. The resolve radiating from them surrounded him like a force he could no longer dismiss. I'll give you one last chance, he said, masking his unease. But if you're going to make noise, you better have a strategy. Consider this the beginning, Mark said firmly, heart swelling with newfound courage. It's not just our stories anymore. Every family will be heard. We will disrupt the silence. With that, the crowd exploded into a roar, the suffocating doubt breaking apart like glass. Let us get moving, Mark shouted, rallying everyone. And like a wave crashing ashore, they surged past Harris and his men, darting toward the fire station. They were united, every voice a thread weaving together into a tapestry of resilience as they arrived. The sirens howled and the doors swung open. Firefighters stood ready, their expressions shifting from confusion to resolve, ready to hear the rising stories all around them. Mark held the little girl's hand tightly, looking at her with gratitude. You led us here. You're brave. She smiled, a glimmer of hope returning to her eyes. I knew you would come. In that moment, Mark realized this was more than just a fight. It was about transforming fear into connections. They weren't just resisting anymore. They were binding together as one, a fierce family determined to change their community's future. As the shadows of doubt lurked nearby, hope lifted like a flame, illuminating their path forward. Let us take back our stories, Mark roared, resonating within the hearts of the community. Together, nothing can dim our light. The spark ignited a fire, fueled by determination and love, and it began to burn brightly against the darkness, a powerful reminder that hope, shared stories, and unwavering strength could conquer any obstacle. And as he looked to the horizon, Mark felt the beginning of a new chapter, a community prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Hand in hand, SO, will you stand with them? Share your voice, your story, and light up the world. Don't just sit back, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support, because only true fans understand the importance of backing our channel through these actions.